Okay, hi. My name's Brent, and I am not Aurelia. Oh, actually, it doesn't show up as Aurelia. Never mind. But I am a guest, the guest pastor for Coffee with a Pastor. I even overfilled my coffee cup, so we'll hope I don't spill it. But I am going to just riff for a minute until people hop on. But one of those would be to say that for whatever reason, my Facebook was dumb and wouldn't let me. Hi, Aurelia. It wouldn't let me log on and accept some like editor. Good morning, Tiffany. It wouldn't let me do this, so I've logged in secretly with someone's password and account. But anyway, while people are hopping on, I'm Brent. I pastor up in Worcester, Massachusetts, where it was a balmy, feels like temperature of 32 degrees this morning. So that was pretty cool, literally. Now it's, in the 40s or something. So really, really great weather. Nice for some warm coffee. So, hi, Jana. I don't know how long hi, Brittany. I don't know how long I'm supposed to do this for, but the riffing part, I mean. But I could tell some embarrassing stories about Aurelia or Matt if anybody wants. Hello, yes. I'm just kidding. I don't have any embarrassing stories about you. I don't know if I even have any about Aurelia, to be honest. But anyway, I feel really honored to do this and excited and grateful. So maybe just another moment. I kept going back and forth on what I wanted to talk about today because I love this opportunity and I love what you all do with this each time. But maybe I'll go ahead and... Yes, Brittany, I did. Actually, all of your comment didn't show up, but... Yes, I think, yes, I agree that we met and then I was up at ABHMS September, maybe November. I don't remember when it was, but and so got to see some good friends up there too. And I was really excited to see that you were working up there. Well, anyway, let me go ahead and get started and just share a few thoughts. About myself. Again, I'm Brent. I'm one of the pastors at First Baptist Worcester. Worcester is about 45 minutes from Boston, west of Boston. And we fight very hard not to be considered a suburb. We aren't a suburb. And one way that we differentiate that is to say that we're the second largest city in New England, which isn't necessarily saying much, but anyhow. So I've been up here about 4.5 years. Before that, I was in Texas. I was a pastoral resident at a church in Dallas called Wilshire Baptist. And then before that, I was at Truett, where I knew two of your pastors. So anyhow. So that's a little bit about me. I'm currently, this will tie into what I wanted to talk about, but I'm currently studying for a Doctor of Ministry at Boston University's School of Theology. And one of the classes that I just finished was on Sabbath. And it was really fascinating to expand my perspectives on Sabbath anyway, but then to do it through this current moment of pandemic, which isn't a Sabbath, but thinking about the opportunities to slow down for some of us. For others, it's not even close to a Sabbath, of course. But to think about all of those different aspects of this pandemic through a lens of Sabbath. And so we talked about all the traditional things that you would think about with rest and renewal and recalibrating your focus and everything like that. Walter Brueggemann, Sabbath as Resistance was just amazing. Rabbi Abraham Heschel, The Sabbath, just amazing. Womanist theologian Barbara Holmes, Joy Unspeakable, amazing. All of these were great. And so thinking about all of these different lenses that come with Sabbath, social justice, liberation, and such, delight. And one of the pieces that sort of surfaced, but we didn't really touch on, was memory. And the idea being that if you create space in your day whether, most of us can't afford a full day of Sabbath, but if you can carve out moments to remove your mind from thinking about your labor, your toil, your work, then it gives your mind a chance to recover, just like your body, your physical well-being. And in that, sometimes memory surfaces, and you can remember back. Sometimes those are sentimental or poignant, and sometimes they're just good reminders of what's important to you, how you ground yourself, center yourself, what your priorities are, all those kinds of things. And so I was struck by this idea of memory, but then also not just thinking remembering backward, but remembering forward, if you will, and thinking about hope and vision and imagination and dreaming. And so thinking on those, I was also struck by how there are numerous articles right now about Sorry, Matt, I saw your I'm not good at reading and talking at the same time, but I want to come back to questions if I don't know if you do those, but thinking about some of these articles that are coming out about how people are dreaming more during this pandemic, and that people are dreaming more often, more vividly, they're remembering them more, and the research suggests that this is common with collective trauma, with these big events, 9/11 or a war, something like this. Everybody's experiencing the anxieties, and part of dreaming, they say, is emotional regulation to help us process what we're going through. Another part of dreaming is that it helps us to encode long-term memories. And I think of like when your computer downloads new software at nighttime and the screensaver's doing its weird bouncing around and stuff. It's whatever that maybe dreaming similar to that's the screensaver, doesn't make much sense while we're encoding long-term memories from the day. There's a third piece of dreaming that I find really interesting too, and it's the idea that that this is an evolutionary function, not just to encode long-term memory, but to remember forwards, to rehearse or practice for when events may take place in real life. So think back to when this might have been advantageous for, say, a cave person, hypothetical saber-toothed tiger, and they're dreaming about a saber-toothed tiger chasing them. Obviously, that's a nightmare, but their subconscious is able to kind of implant some behaviors that they might, how they might respond in real life if a saber-toothed tiger, heaven forbid, chases them. So the idea being that it helps you remember backwards and it helps you remember forward. So thinking about these kinds of functions of dreams, and then I was looking at what our church read for our scriptures on Sunday, and I promise I'm not going to re-preach my sermon or anything like that, although it was only 12 minutes, so I guess I could probably fit it in here, but don't worry. But I did want to pull out a couple pieces of that. But hi, Mary Alice. But I was when I was looking at the scripture, it's from Acts 2, and it happens right after Pentecost, which actually does mention dreaming. But dreams are not mentioned in this little section. I just wanted to read it. It's from Acts 2:42. It says, "The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. And the Lord added daily to the community those who were being saved." So that was the scripture that we read yesterday, and you'll notice again that the word dreaming doesn't occur there, but all of this stuff about dreaming and Sabbath and memory was floating in my mind as I read this, and I was thinking about the disciples here in Acts and how I've always seen them as these trailblazers of our faith. They modeled debate and discernment and boundary crossing for their theology back then, but also as a model for ours, 2,000 years later. And I forget sometimes, I was realizing that in those decisions, as brave and hard as they were, and sometimes slow to arrive at, they weren't necessarily making it up on the fly. I just kind of assume they were. That the scripture would say that the Spirit compelled them to do something, or they prayed and then they acted. So it's almost as if they make it up as they go. But I was thinking about this and realizing that maybe much of what they were doing they'd already learned from Jesus, and maybe at the time of his ministry they were confused, or they didn't understand, or they pushed back, but they witnessed the way that God worked through Jesus at the time, and now the Spirit is working through them at the time. And so I'm just, I was thinking about all of this, and it brought me back to the idea of memories, that they were remembering how Jesus acted, that maybe the Spirit's speaking to them through these examples in Jesus' life, almost as if those previous experiences with Jesus functioned almost like dreams might do for us, as a way to practice what they might do when the time would come for them to act on their own, like a muscle memory that had been built up, and then when the time came, they did it. And so this is what I wanted to read from just a few pieces from yesterday, thinking about that, their muscle memory kicking in. After all, here they are in this scripture. They're pooling their resources, just like the boy who gave his fish and bread to feed 5,000 people. Here they are sharing meals together like they'd seen Jesus do hundreds of times before, irrespective of anyone's social standing. Soon they'll welcome a person from Ethiopia who is banned from worshiping in the temple because of his gender as a eunuch. And they'll welcome him like Jesus welcomed others who were cut off, like he did with those individuals living with leprosy. Soon they'll create a new position in the church called deacons, who care for the most vulnerable, like Jesus, healing Peter's mother-in-law or raising up Jairus' daughter. They'll help a man to walk like Jesus did several times. And then the text goes on to say that they live in unity and they share everything, just as Jesus had prayed for them to do in John's gospel. They gather and sell their property and possessions to distribute to those in need, which sounds like a habit they probably developed of simplicity and resisting accumulation after following Jesus around the countryside for 3 years. It's as if their muscle memory kicked into action when their time came here in Acts. And all of that together brings me back to this season of Corona tide, as I'm calling it, this seemingly unending season of suffering and isolation, and for 8 weeks now, and longer for some. And it's at first it seemed like it was a way for us to maybe build some unity across so many differences, and instead it seems like it's shining this ultraviolet spotlight in the gaping cracks in our relationships and societies and our priorities and how we value human life. And I've been using this language of muscle memory with the church, and suddenly I felt really legit when I saw that Brene Brown had used similar language, and she's also talking about this idea of muscle memory and what we can do now. And I can't help thinking that while this feels like a nightmare for everyone, more than just a dream, this saber-toothed tiger that we haven't seen before, it still also can offer us an opportunity to cultivate new practices of kindness and goodness that it makes it all the more critical for us to speak up when we see something or hear something that's unwise or untrue or unfair or dangerous, even if it risks upsetting people. Not because, and we don't speak up because we think our opinion's more valuable or more important, but because we actually think people can change their minds. We still believe that deep down, and if speaking up isn't a new thing that you want to take on, you can still do other things, and we can all try to resist turning inward, and in the sense of insulating ourselves from the pain and needs of others. And we can try to make the effort to take on something new, something positive, something kind, that it involves some creativity and some imagination, because we have to respect so many different physical distancing measures. But add in a phone call to a friend each day. Do a chore for the household each day. That's I live alone, so that one doesn't really apply to me. Although I could be kind to myself, but send a text message, FaceTime somebody. That's one of the things I'm doing, is trying to FaceTime somebody every day. create art, create music, make music, and take pictures and paint and promote beauty, all of these different things. Try something new each day, just a little thing, to get yourself outside, to get outside of yourself and to try to help others. And in the process, we're helping in the moment for people or for ourselves. But on the other side of this, we're developing these muscles. We're strengthening and stretching muscles that on the other side will kick into gear, so that we aren't just looking to return back to normal with those habits that will continue to call for us from the past, those familiar hectic rhythms, but instead these new rhythms of kindness and Sabbath and rest will show up and will be enacted. And I was thinking maybe that sounds like a pipe dream itself, but maybe like a dream, then we have the chance to rehearse now, to practice now, and see it blossom later when our muscle memory kicks in. And so thinking about all the ways that people are dreaming more, and I see comments there about that people are dreaming more during the pandemic, it also makes me wonder if God isn't dreaming a little bit more too about us. So those are some of my thoughts that I've had about this moment that we're in, and how it pertains to memory and rest and delight and goodness and muscle memory and all those things. So those are a few thoughts that I had. I am way behind on the comments because, like I said, I'm not good at multitasking. But I don't know, maybe if there are questions or ideas. I see so many, and I don't know if it's. I don't have much wisdom to offer here. Those are just my thoughts. But I'd love to keep the conversation going for a few more minutes. If not, that's okay too. But how many of you are, again, I didn't scroll back, but how many of you are having like vivid dreams, or you're noticing your dreams more right now? Anyone? I'm not, actually. I don't know what that says about me. I can tell a story or two about Aurelia if you want. I'm just kidding. Well, maybe with that, then I will just leave it. I want to go back and read these. I'm just, yeah. Renee is a legitimizer. That's awesome, Jenna. Yeah, one of the things too, just thinking about muscle memory, there's a really good book called Atomic Habits. It's also, if you do anything with ethics, virtue ethics, but the idea that you just do one thing and it becomes a habit and a pattern over time, and how you can do that, in your spiritual life and things too. But anyway, with that, I guess I will leave it. Oh, Aurelia, you're just like agreeing, about the dreams. Sorry. Well, I just want to say thanks so much for this, and I am a big fan of your church, your community, and I admire what you are doing from afar, and it's neat to do so from within for just a few moments today. And it would be great to collaborate again sometime with all of you, and I wish all of you good health and safety today, and also good spiritual health and blessings upon you. And thank you again, and we'll see you later. Thanks for this, Aurelia. Bye.